Welcome to SBA University Red Flag Lesson. I'm going to discuss 6 red flags to look out for when you're on your search to buy a business. Red flag number 1, overvalued business. This seems obvious, right? You've got a buyer who's had that business made from it started. You've got a broker whose job is to get top value for it. The value typically is determined by the SDE, the seller discretionary earnings. Most brokers and business owners will typically use that number to a multiple to determine the value of that business. Now, when you're looking to buy a business, you obviously have to take a loan to buy it. So we run cash flow numbers. A lot of times, if there's not sufficient cash flow to buy the business, the number one cause could be just an overvalued business. Work with a lender that'll run the cash flow numbers to see if the business is appropriately priced to give you the best chance to be approved for a loan. Red flag number 2, declining trends. You're buying a business, it's a living, breathing entity. We collect 3 years historical financials along with year dates. What are the first things that I look for? Top line revenue. How has revenue been trending the last few years? How is it trending year to date? We obviously want to see a business that shows year-over-year growth, not only in revenue, but profitability. It's not always going to be that. There could be some ups and some downs. The business could have won a large contract that inflated its revenue one year, so necessarily not a bad thing that revenue dropped a little bit, but you just want to make sure you're asking questions. What we don't want to see is year-over-year declining revenue trends. Every once in a while, you'll see 3 straight years of declining revenue, and the year-to-date show the same trend. Huge red flags. A lot of lenders are not going to like to see that. Also with year-to-dates, I always recommend requesting the period of time that we're in. So if you're January through June in 2025, collect January through June of 2024. You want to see how that business is performing year-to-date versus last year. If you have a business that's showing, again, a year-over-year decline in revenue, there's just got to be some questions you got to ask. You're buying the business as it stands today, and you want to make sure that business is healthy and not dropping. Red flag number 3, customer concentration. We consider anything over 20% of your total revenue coming from one source as some customer concentration that we're going to want to dig in a little bit. Does that current owner have any type of contract with that person? What's going to prevent that person leaving as soon as you take over the business? We really want to dig into that. We want to stay away from businesses that rely on one revenue source for a majority of their revenue. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing your due diligence, if the seller's offering seller financing, if there's customer concentration, you could potentially negotiate a forgivable seller's note. If a top customer leaves in a certain period of time after taking over, potentially that seller's note gets forgiven and you don't owe that money. So protect yourself from buying a business where there might be too much customer concentration. Red flag number 4, lack of buyer experience in an industry. Most of us look to buy a business, you kind of start in general, right? Industry agnostic. I'm just going to see what's out there. If anything really kind of looks promising or looks fun, I'm going to want to buy that business. Thing you got to keep in mind is a lender is going to look at your background, your resume, your skill set to see if you're a good fit. You never worked in a restaurant before and want to buy a restaurant because you think it looks fun? Probably not going to go well with the credit department. It's super important to try to gear your search to a business or an industry that matches your skill set. You can bring on partners if potentially the business you really like does not match your skill set. You got to get creative in your ownership structure if you potentially find a business that might be a little bit outside of your expertise. Just be prepared to have to explain to a lender why this is going to be a good fit for you to run the business. Red flag number 5, significant add backs on the business listing. When you're doing your initial due diligence, usually on the SIM or the broker or the business listing, they'll usually lay out a few years of P&Ls, year-to-date financials, and then add backs. What you want to avoid is a company that gets their valuation based on significant add backs. The owner's personal expenses. The owner took money out for travel, for meals, for cars, for things that would be considered discretionary and not part of business operations. You got to be careful because relying on those things are only going to be met with resistance and credit. We want to look at the business as a core. What's its income? Then the eligible add backs like interest, depreciation, owner's compensation. You can dig in the numbers, but think about the things that are easily documented. A family member that was potentially on payroll that didn't do much, great. Collect that W-2, we can add it back. $15,000 worth of meals throughout the year, it's going to be tough to collect all that information. And to be honest with you, a lender's not going to want to do that. We want to make sure the business can cash flow the debt based on the business operations, not so much including any personal expenses that potentially were used to lower the tax liability. So just be aware, a business listing that has a lot of personal add backs could run into some issues, not only from a credit cash flow standpoint, but from a business valuation standpoint as well. Red flag number 6, buying a business that requires a license. If you're not going to be the license holder, be prepared to have to explain to a credit department how that license is going to work post-sale. Is the license attached to the business? Is the license the current owner that's going away? That license cannot be the license you're relying on to operate the business. So think of your HVAC companies, your electrical, your plumbing. You need to find the replacement for that owner. And a lot of times you might have to put them as part of your ownership group. That way they're locked into the business and that license will be there post-close. A credit department's always going to be hesitant to close on a business acquisition without the license being part of the deal. So as you're looking for potentially those trades businesses, contractors businesses, be on the lookout for a potential employee that will partner with you on that deal. As long as they have under 20%, they will not have to guarantee, but that allows you to have that license locked into the business and ultimately allow you to get that loan approved and closed. In summary, these are just 6 red flags to be on the lookout for as you're doing your business acquisition search. Until next time, class dismissed. Thank you for watching this episode of SBA University. Hopefully you found this episode helpful. If you need to get a hold of me directly, I'll leave my email address down in the description. Be on the lookout as I will be releasing new lessons every week to help you in your SBA journey. Thanks.